I have just watched the brand new episode of Doctor Who, 73 Yards, and it is the first episode in this new season where I have actually gone, this feels like Doctor Who. All of these other episodes so far, there's either been something that's been really wrong with it or something that has just felt really off that doesn't feel like the show that I absolutely love and adore. This is the first episode where I actually think this is what Doctor Who is and what Doctor Who should be. So today we're going to run through some different clips from this episode and discuss the reasons why I think this is so far the best episode of this new season, and hopefully if any of the future episodes are like this episode, we are in good hands. But before we go any further, please make sure that you've clicked that red subscribe button down below and have your notifications turned on. So far, since Russell T Davies has returned, including the 60th specials, I haven't really felt like this has been proper Doctor Who. Something has just felt a bit off about it. I don't know what it is. Just the vibes, the kind of forced agendas in some of them, just other stuff has just felt really off. And just taking into account the first 3 episodes of this new season, Space Babies just felt very off. Like it felt like Doctor Who, but also like just the weird CGI babies talking was just a bit off, and it didn't feel like an exciting opener. The Devil's Cord was absolutely awful in so many ways. I can't tell you, it was just rubbish.
Maestro.
If you want to see my full opinion on that episode, there'll be a link to a video by clicking the card somewhere up there, or there'll be a link down below in the description. And even with Boom, with Stephen Moffat returning, I did really like the episode and the concept, but then the Doctor just like randomly mocking people of faith, and just the whole vibe of certain lines just felt a bit off, and so it didn't really stick with me either. This is the first episode where I actually thought, do you know what? Nothing in this episode is actually annoying me. I'm not being taken out of the episode by some really dodgy line or something. Instead, this feels like a proper escape episode. It feels like Doctor Who. And the best thing is, it feels like Doctor Who because it's using a really strange and quite unsettling concept and making that into a full-length episode. I mean, the concept is just absolutely great. The idea of having someone follow you for your entire life, but being distanced from you. They're not actually right next to you. They're not actually coming anywhere close to you. You can just barely see them 73 yards away. Not enough so that you can see their face, hear what they're doing, even see what their movements are, but you always know they're there and they follow you for the rest of your life. I mean, that is such a good concept and a really creepy and disturbing concept, and I love the way Russell T Davies has used this concept in this episode. Let's take a look at some of it.
Following is the wrong word, because she doesn't approach. She comes so far, and it's like she stays away.
In Latin, it would be semper distans, always distant. She's semper distance to you.
I mean, just looking at the fear in Ruby's eyes and just the uncomfortableness of the whole setting and environment is so cool. And what I really love about this episode is that when I went into it and all I'd seen from the next time was the scene in the pub, I thought, okay, this is going to be a creepy horror episode, which sometimes Doctor Who can do well, sometimes it can't do well, maybe something to do with ghosts and everything like that. But then it didn't end up being anything like that, and suddenly we only spend about 10 minutes in this pub, which is a brilliant scene, by the way, and then the next thing you know, we are looking through the entire lifespan of Ruby's life. Like, what I love about this episode is that you had no idea where it was going. Suddenly, we are dealing with units returning. We have the fact that a random line that the Doctor said about 2046, which I felt was just, okay, a cool Doctor Who line to say, suddenly then becomes actually relevant in the future, and you have no idea where this episode is going, and that's what I love about it. And that's what I think makes this episode so great.
I take it that's the woman behind me, is that right?
Yes.
Good. Well, just look at me instead.
Like, literally, when suddenly Kate appeared on my screen, I literally gasped and went, what? Unit? Like, what? And it was just an amazing feeling. What I love is that we don't know what's happening in this episode. We have no idea. Unit doesn't know. And the fact is, we never really do get a conclusive answer at the end, which I think is quite cool. We never know what she's saying, and it allows for these really great moments of character work that so far in the previous episodes, I don't think we've really been able to discover yet. And I think that is the best part of this episode, is that it gave us a chance to really understand who Ruby Sunday is by literally letting us look at her entire life and gave us a proper chance to see Millie Gibson's acting. So far in the past 3 episodes, Millie Gibson hasn't really been the standout. In fairness, she isn't really meant to be the standout, but since the Christmas special episode, I haven't really felt like I've connected with the character of Ruby as much. And I think that is one of the reasons why I feel like these episodes have felt a bit off. Because if your companion doesn't work and they're the audience's viewpoint, it feels really off and doesn't seem to work very well. I mean, just look at the Flux, for example. We had Yaz and Dan, arguably 2 of the worst companions possible in a series that already had pretty bad writing. Adding in those 2 companions, I didn't connect with any of them, and I thought they were all pretty rubbish. And then the entire season was awful. I mean, why they got rid of Graham, I will never know. So you need a good companion, but the problem was in Space Babies, in The Devil's Cord, in Boom, all of them, Ruby just seemed to be a bit of an outsider. And in fairness, you are introducing a new Doctor, and Ncuti was definitely the standout of all of them. But this is truly where I go, yes, Millie Gibson is Ruby Sunday. Ruby Sunday is an interesting character, and I absolutely love it. The acting is incredible. Just watch this scene.
Mum, whatever she's saying, just don't. No, Mum, don't listen to her. Please don't do this to me, Mum. Mum, don't do this to me, Mum.
Like, this is what makes Doctor Who so good, when we can really connect with the companion and we get to see an insight into their life and how it really deeply affects them. And it's such an emotional moment, and I think Millie Gibson is absolutely smashing it. I absolutely connected with Ruby Sunday on this episode, and getting to see the more human side of things is one of the reasons why this episode works so well, and seeing more of the drama of it rather than just the sci-fi. And what's even madder is that if you watch Doctor Who Unleashed after this episode came out, this was actually Millie Gibson's first episode shooting. She hadn't filmed any other episodes because Ncuti Gatwa was still filming Sex Education, and so episode 4 was her first episode on set. And for that to be your first episode, and being so young and being able to just absolutely own it, just shows how good of an actor she is, and I think she is the reason why this episode works so well. There's another big reason also why this episode works so well. I mentioned before the reason why we don't know where it's going is the fact that we get this cool timeline of Ruby's life that where even when it ends and we think she's finally defeated the villain, and by the way, that scene is amazing, it's not actually the end, and she still has to deal with this for the rest of her life. We don't know what's happening, and it's so unpredictable. If you'd have told me at the beginning that we were going to end this episode with Ruby being 80 years old, still with this woman following her, I wouldn't have believed you, but that's how good this episode is.
You get off the grass. I said, get off the pitch. Are you listening? Get off the pitch. Ruby, what are you doing? It's an order. I said, stay where you are. I said, stay where you are.
You see, I'm feeling really tense in this scene. It's such good, and just hearing the robotic voice slowly counting up through the yards. And whilst this is happening, you're beginning to realise, oh, we realise what Ruby's about to do, and it's just built up so perfectly.
That's exactly what I'm gonna do. Can you leave me alone?
It's the fact that you really feel like, okay, that is the end of the episode. Ruby's achieved what she's meant to do, and she definitely thinks she's achieved what she's meant to do, and that means that this woman will finally leave her. And then suddenly we jump 40 years into the future, and she's still there, proving that, yes, it was brilliant what Ruby did, but it didn't actually save the world, it didn't save her. This woman's still with her, and I just think that's an amazing concept, and like I say, I couldn't have predicted this. This is such a interesting episode and interesting concept where honestly it kept me on the edge of my seat, because suddenly more and more things kept on happening that I didn't have any idea would be happening. And also we get the lovely shot of the TARDIS standing on the cliff with all the flowers, which is just a beautiful shot. And then once Ruby was old and we then see her obviously transform into the old woman, it did slowly begin getting predictable, but then again I've been on the edge of my seat throughout the entire time. Eventually all the clues started adding up and I was like, okay, this is actually Ruby herself trying to save herself from the past, which again is a brilliant concept. Slightly predictable at the end, but I really liked it. I'd say the only criticism that I have of this episode is that it's never actually explained, and maybe that is the point, but it's never explained like why it happens. Apart from the fact that the Doctor steps into the circle, it's never really given much of an explanation, but I don't really care because at the end of the day, it's a bit of timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff, which I absolutely love. And what this episode reminds me of is it reminds me so much of some of the greatest episodes of Doctor Who, which are, of course, Doctor Light episodes. This is a Doctor Light episode, and Doctor Light episodes can either be a hit or a miss. You've got some misses, like Love and Monsters is probably the most iconic one, but of course you have some hits which are some of the best episodes in all of Doctor Who, and it's because they really focus in on the characters and human lives personally and how they're affected when the Doctor isn't there. And that is why I think this episode is so good. It plays on that idea. It reminds me so much of Blink, which I absolutely love, and my favourite Doctor Who Light episode, Turn Left. And Catherine Tate said this about Turn Left in an interview with Doctor Who Confidential, and I think Russell T Davies definitely took inspiration from his past ideas, because here's what she said about that episode.
What has caused me in one life to turn left, enabling all the good things to happen, is me in another life. I'll create a diversion on a road that means I will not turn right, because turning right will be the life I've just lived.
And it's kind of a similar concept here. We've got Ruby in one life saving herself in another life, and that is the reason why I love this episode. It reminded me so much of Turn Left, and Turn Left is one of my favourite episodes of Doctor Who. If Doctor Who is going to be like this from now on, this is what I want it to be like. These really deep character, personal moments with concepts that are really, really cool and quite creepy and disturbing, but also where we don't know where the story's going and it continuing to be unpredictable. That is the best type of Doctor Who that I like, and that is why I absolutely love this episode, and I'm really looking forward to next week's episode. Let me know all your thoughts down below, guys, in the comments about what you guys thought of this episode. Do you agree with me? Do you think this is the best episode of the season so far? Does this feel like proper Doctor Who? Or do you think that it still feels a bit off? Let me know all your thoughts down there. And as always, we've been here on Gate of Theories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.